Hi everyone, welcome back. As many of you know, the disappearance of Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 in 2014 is one of the world's biggest mysteries. Despite extensive searches, the plane and its 239 occupants have never been found. Conspiracy theories abound, but the truth is that we may never know what really happened. Now, in this video, I'm going to talk about what's been going on behind the scenes in the search for MH370 and the incredible discoveries that have just been made. So sit tight because this is going to be an interesting one. As I already mentioned, on March 8, 2014, Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 disappeared from radar screens while flying from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. The Boeing 777 was carrying 227 passengers and 12 crew members when it vanished. Despite an extensive search, no trace of the plane was found until recently. A piece of debris washed up on the shores of Reunion Island in the Indian Ocean 5 months later. Since then, more pieces have been found and analyzed, providing some clues as to what happened. In August 2015, the Australian Transport Safety Bureau, ATSB, released a report stating that the most likely scenario was that the plane had flown for a total of 7 hours after it turned off its transponder and crashed into the Indian Ocean. The ATSB believes that the plane flew for 2 hours after turning off its transponder and then again for 4.5 hours after running out of fuel. However, the report stops short of saying what caused the plane to crash. In 2016, investigators used satellite data to create a range of possible paths that the plane could have taken. These paths were nicknamed the Seventh Arc, after the seventh arc of a circle that they formed in the Indian Ocean. The arc stretched for 7,600 kilometers and covered an area of 62,000 square kilometers. This area is still the focus of the search efforts today. The current search effort is being led by the Malaysian government in cooperation with the Australian and Chinese governments. The search is being conducted in 2 phases. The first phase involves searching an area of 120,000 square kilometers in the southern part of the seventh arc. The second phase will involve searching the northern part of the arc. So what has been discovered so far? Well, as I mentioned earlier, in addition to the debris, several underwater searches have been conducted. These searches have not turned up any major discoveries, but they have helped to map the seafloor in the search area. This mapping has helped investigators to better understand the ocean currents in the area, which could help them to narrow down the search area further. So what about this recent discovery? What is it? Well, as I mentioned in my previous video, a team of scientists from the University of Southampton in the UK used a new technique to analyze the satellite data from the night that MH370 disappeared. The technique allowed them to create a 3-dimensional model of the plane's path, which revealed that the plane had flown for several hours after it turned off its transponder. This information is consistent with the ATSB's report from 2015. However, the 3D model provides a much more detailed picture of what happened. According to the model, the plane flew for about 7 hours after turning off its transponder, which is longer than previously thought. The plane then flew for another 2 hours before it ran out of fuel and crashed into the Indian Ocean. The model also showed that the plane's speed decreased significantly after it turned off its transponder, which suggests that the pilot or pilots did this intentionally. The plane speed was reduced from about 450 knots to about 200 knots. This information is consistent with the fact that the plane broke up in flight. If the plane had been flying at 450 knots when it hit the water, it would not have broken up. However, at 200 knots, the forces involved would cause the plane to break up as it hit the water. What's really shocking about this discovery is that the plane was flying for several hours after it ran out of fuel. This is known as a glide, and it suggests that someone on board the plane knew how to fly it manually. The plane would have flown for about 2 hours after it ran out of fuel, which would have given the pilot plenty of time to land the plane safely. However, this did not happen. Instead, the plane was deliberately crashed into the Indian Ocean. This discovery has raised a lot of questions about what really happened on board MH370. Did the pilot intentionally crash the plane? If so, why? Was there a mechanical problem that the pilot could not fix, or was it a terrorist attack? Unfortunately, we may never know the answers to these questions. However, this discovery has helped to narrow down the search area. The plane must have crashed into the Indian Ocean somewhere along the seventh arc. This arc is about 7,600 kilometers long and covers an area of 62,000 square kilometers. The search area has now been narrowed down to a much smaller area, which is much more promising. Another important piece of information that has emerged is the fact that the plane broke up in flight. This suggests that the plane was not on fire when it hit the water. If the plane had been on fire, it would have burned up before breaking up. The fact that the plane broke up suggests that the fire started after the plane hit the water. This is consistent with the fact that the plane was deliberately crashed into the Indian Ocean. The pilot or pilots would have intentionally flown the plane into the water to hide the evidence of the fire. These new developments are exciting because they bring us one step closer to finding the plane and the answers we've been looking for. The search for MH370 is one of the most complex and challenging searches ever undertaken. The plane disappeared without a trace, and the only clues we have are a few pieces of debris and some satellite data. Despite the challenges, investigators have made significant progress. The discovery of the plane's seventh arc and the fact that it broke up in flight has helped to narrow down the search area. The search is currently focused on an area of 120,000 square kilometers in the southern part of the seventh arc. This area is much smaller than the original search area of 62,000 square kilometers, and it is much more promising. The search is being conducted by the Malaysian, Australian, and Chinese governments. The search is expected to take several months, but it is hoped that it will finally provide the answers we've been seeking for so long. The search for MH370 is a reminder of the power of the ocean. The plane disappeared without a trace, and the only clues we have are a few pieces of debris and some satellite data. Despite the challenges, investigators have made significant progress. The discovery of the plane's seventh arc and the fact that it broke up in flight has helped to narrow down the search area. The search is currently focused on an area of 120,000 square kilometers in the southern part of the seventh arc. This area is much smaller than the original search area of 62,000 square kilometers, and it is much more promising. The search is being conducted by the Malaysian, Australian, and Chinese governments. The search is expected to take several months, but it is hoped that it will finally provide the answers we've been seeking for so long. The disappearance of MH370 is one of the greatest mysteries of our time. It is a tragedy that has left a whole host of unanswered questions and a legacy of heartbreak. After 11 years, the fight for answers continues as the search for the missing plane resumes. Will we ever know the truth behind MH370? Only time will tell. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more updates and leave a like if you enjoyed the video. See you next time.